What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. Today I am so excited to show you the video for my newest pattern, the Callisto Crossbody. She is a smallish medium crossbody bag, comes in two sizes. We have the slim, which is like turbo slim, but stretches, allows for a lot of growth. And then you also have the wide, which is just built with growth in mind. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the wide with cork piping. So you can see here's my cork piping. And this is the wide because it has about a 2-inch depth here. So you can see it closes with one top zipper. Ta-da! And then it has one interior zipper, and then it's nice and wide open down in there. And then it has this cutesy little snap pocket. I added D-ring rivets in the pattern, but I got a little saucy tonight and decided to use my new hardware. It's on my website if you're interested in that. And yeah, I mean, I just love this bag. So I have been using a slim version. This is not the one that I've been using. This one's brand new. But I have been using this size. You see how thin it is. It's so thin, especially compared to the wide. But I've been using this bad boy for, I don't know, 6 months or so. And I don't carry a whole lot, but I have like a Deimos and I have some chapstick that I never ever use. What do you put on your face? Sunscreen. I have all sorts of little things. I keep my glasses cleaner right down in here with my nail file. And then, of course, there's like a bunch of old receipts because we all need those. But I have this little guy stuffed, but it still maintains, even when this bag is stuffed, it gets to this wide. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure situation. You can do so many different things. You can add snap pockets to the front and the back. You can just do a snap on the front. You can add a zipper. The same way that you do the zipper overlay pocket on the interior, you can add that to the exterior. You can do 2 zipper pockets on the inside, or you could just not do anything. You can just have a nice, simple, sophisticated, no pockets, all one color, slim bag, which is perfect for a night out. You can just make a wristlet strap if you want it to be a clutch. It's just really, there's a lot of combinations that you can do. Just kind of go wild with it. The piping is a fun addition. If you've never tried piping before, it seems really hard, and I'm not trying to say it's easy because it can definitely be challenging, but it adds such a fun flair to whatever you're making, and you can really get inventive with it. Once you learn how to install piping, you can just put it anywhere. And, you know, piping comes in these pre-made colors, or you can get cork piping like you see here. There are only a couple stores that I have found that still sell cork piping, and it is a little expensive, but it is really cool. But there's nothing that says that you can't make your own piping. If you get your own cording, I think a lot of times it's like 3/8 inch cording, but you can get really thick cording. You can go crazy, make your own piping, any size you want. You can make piping using vinyl, cotton. I would not try leather, but you can totally make your own cork piping. So yeah, you can just really go wild. This is a fantastic skill builder pattern. Of course, as with most of my patterns, they're as long as you know how to use your machine and you have some time to take your time and work through the pattern step by step, you can accomplish this no problem, even if it's your first bag. I highly suggest giving it a go. A note about textiles. With all my patterns, I write everything for use with self-healing edge textiles. So a textile that you can leave raw edge. That's because I do a lot of turns and flips, and I'm not doing right sides together and flipping. So there's not like a finished edge. So raw edge textiles give you the opportunity to just do one singular fold and leave the edge raw. You know, it's in the name. So I'm telling you all this because if you want to, you can adapt this pattern to be used with all cottons or any standard fabric that frays. The only part that you're going to have to pay attention to, I have to put you down, is The inside of this pocket has a raw edge down in here. So you would have to create a bigger seam allowance and double fold that edge. And then also the strap. The way that I make my straps is tri-fold style. So there is one long raw edge along the whole edge of the strap. So you could do a cotton strap, make it 4 times the width that you want it to end up. So for this pattern, I do a 1/2 inch strap. I feel like it's a nice width. It's not overzealous or too thick. It's just nice and dainty. But so if you wanted a 1/2 inch strap using all cotton, you would cut out 2 inches of cotton and then fold your long edges in toward the center and then fold those raw edges in toward the center again and then stitch all the way around. So there are ways to adapt this pattern to be all cotton. That being said, I do not tell you that in the pattern. I wrote it for raw edge patterns, so that's how the pattern is written. But with a little bit of ingenuity and know-how, you can certainly adapt it. So without further ado, I hope that you really enjoy this pattern. If you're seeing this video, that means that it is live on my website. If you don't see SVG files yet, I don't know when you're going to be watching this. Certainly everybody doesn't watch this the day that it launches, but likely there are SVG files. And if there aren't yet, so today is June 1st, 2023, they will be here next week. So I will have SVG files listed. And if you make the PDF purchase prior to the SVG files being available, once they go live, you can shoot me an email through my website and I will activate just the SVG files for you. So no worries on that. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy this pattern. Please leave me a comment, press the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe by clicking the bell and notifications. And it's like a red subscribe button. It's somewhere down there. If you are so inclined, you can feel free to join my Patreon. All my patrons got early access and they help me design the bag and they help me pick the cover. So it's a lot of fun over there. We have a good time, and in Patreon you get early access, first access, behind the scenes, all that jazz. All of those links will be in the description box below. Happy sewing and happy launch day. So the first thing that we are going to do on our Callisto is we're going to get the strap out of the way. So go ahead and grab your pieces. And now if you need to splice them together or conjoin them, that's what I'm going to show you how to do here. Otherwise, if you just have one long piece, you'll just skip ahead just a touch. But I'm going to do like a quilt binding method. So I'm going to crisscross about 1/4 of an inch, about 1/4 of an inch, right sides together, and clip this into place. And then I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch diagonally right here. And then when you flip it and fold it open, what should happen is it should line up nicely. So let's go get this sewn. So I just folded this edge up and back, and you'll see here where my 2 pieces now line up. And keeping all of the bulk in one direction, I'm going to top stitch. Here we have it all stitched, and now what I need to do is trim away this bulk. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch or so on this back side here. And then I'm also going to trim off this little tail. And now we have a strap that is pieced, and it's nice and durable because both of the layers are butterfly, or not butterfly, but both of the layers are sewn toward one side. And what I'm going to do is fold this into thirds. And I don't know why, it's just practice. I've always done it. I start here along the center line and sew, or start to clip it at this point. So to finish this off, we need to stitch down these long edges. I stitch right about 1/8 or so from each edge here. And what I'm paying attention to while I'm sewing is making sure that this raw edge meets up with this folded edge. And I'm also going to stitch across these little short edges as well. I like to start on my open side just to get that all tucked into place. I'm using a size 18 needle, a size 4 stitch, and a Mon Tex 70 thread. To finish the strap, we need our hardware. So I need 2 1/2-inch lobster clasps. I need 1 1/2-inch slide. I need some rivets. I'm using 7mm rivets, a hole punch, and then I'm going to knit my corners like I do. That's just a personal preference. Do not feel obligated to do that. I just want to make sure that everything is nice and clean and flush on these edges. And now I like to, on the side where I started my stitch lines, that's where I like to attach my slide. So with my raw edge folding away from me, folding down, I'm going to go up and over the middle bar. And I'm going to overlap it about 3/4 of an inch or so. As you can see, I'm just eyeballing it. And then I like to put my hands on either side of the strap to make sure that it's laying correctly and punch a hole. And then whatever tools you have, you're going to punch your rivet. Now, with your raw edge, your folded edge facing up, you're going to find the other end of your strap, being careful not to twist it. Slide on 1 lobster clasp, and so this is technically the bottom of the strap, and you want the bottom of the clasp. So you want it to lay just like that. So the bottom of the clasp is on the bottom of the strap, and then you're going to slide it back all the way up to this tri-slide. Give yourself the leeway, so push it. And then you're going to take your strap, slide it through, and then up and over that middle bar, just like so. And then you'll see it makes one big loop, and you want to be sure it's not twisted. And then now, so the bottom of the strap, bottom of the clasp, you're going to attach your other lobster clasp. And there we have our completed strap ready to go. What I will do off camera, it's not a pretty process and it takes a little bit, is I will take my Mod Podge and I will lay it along that raw edge here, just to be sure that it doesn't fray when the bag is in use. And then that's when my strap will be done. But if you don't want to do Mod Podge, you don't have to. And at this point, you would consider that your strap is completed. Now for this next step, we are going to be creating our snap pocket. So you need the snap pocket exterior and the snap pocket lining. You'll also need the coordinating pattern piece, a hole punch, and some glue. So to get started, we need to mark our hole that we're gonna install our snap at. And what I like to do is on the pattern piece itself, so right here in this middle section of where the snap is shown where it goes, I like to just use my hole punch and punch a little hole, which demarcates exactly where I need to install that snap. So with that hole punch, now I can mark, and now I know that I need to snap the hole right there. So I'll go ahead and do that now, just to give myself a guide in the next step. Now we need to attach this to this. And I like to put glue on my main panel here. And I'm not going all the way up to the top. I'm gonna leave about 1/2 inch or so. But what I really want to ensure is that this back panel, that the lining is laying nicely and that there's enough glue all over the panel to hold this entire lining piece correctly. And so when I'm laying my lining piece, I'm laying them wrong sides together, and what I'm paying attention to is my sides and bottoms. And I'm lining those up. And you'll notice that there is a gap here. The gap is a 1/2 inch, and that is intentional. Because next, what we do is we fold this excess over right along that top edge of our lining piece, and we're going to enclose this raw edge here. If you want to, something that concerns you, you can Mod Podge this top edge here, because that is going to be raw on the inside. I don't really find it necessary on this pattern, because the stuff that's going in and out of the snap pocket, it's not going to rustle this around enough. It's not going to have a lot of friction on it all the time. Like, whereas a strap will end up, because it rubs against your clothes and your body and your shoulders while you're wearing it, it will eventually show some wear and tear, and it'll start to pill, or not pill, but fray. And so it doesn't happen on the inside of this pocket though, not in my experience at least. So you can use double stick tape here. You could just clip it, you could glue it. As you can see, I'm just going straight in with my clips. And what I'm gonna do now is from the front side over on my machine, I'm gonna do a double line of stitching across this entire pocket. I'm gonna do my first line at 1/8 inch, and then I'm gonna go down to 1/4 inch. And then once I get back up here, I'm just going to pivot and put my stitches back down to 4 and then stitch the second line. And then you can see now we have really nice even stitches along this top edge. If you wanted to, you could even come down to 3/8 of an inch, and then you'll get closer to this inside raw edge. But I really like the look of the double. You can also just do one, totally up to you. Now to install the snap, what we're going to do is flip this panel over, and using the hole that we punched before, punch through the other layers. And you're going to find your cap piece. So this is going to be the piece that shows on the outside. So for me, it's this cap. And then it's also the button part of the snap. And you can see on my bags here, I labeled 1 and 2 because these are the 2 pieces that go together. And then with their coordinating die set, I labeled those 1 and 2 as well. And so this has really helped me to learn which die set goes to which piece of the snap. And it just, I'm a very visual learner, and so I don't know, I just find that helpful. So you're going to take your cap and insert it into the hole that you just punched and go through all those layers. Then what I like to do is I take the button part of it and I snap it directly onto the die before I attach the die. So the part that has the lettering, the outside of the snap of the cap, you can see this is the inside of it. But so this is the side that goes, that's going to show. And so you put the right side into the snap and you can hear it clip into place. So once it's attached like that, then I go ahead and attach the die to my press. And then I'm going to take this coordinating side, and you can tell that this is the cap side because it's nice and hollow in there, and this cap fits in that opening perfectly. These are 12.5 millimeters or a 1/2 inch spring snaps. So that sits in this bottom section and the cap is at the top. So what you do is you're going to take this panel and you slide it in until you feel the cap slide into the die. And then being careful, keeping your fingers out of the way, just press it together. And then when you take it off, you have a completed snap set. And the reason that we do that little tab is just to add some extra durability and give the snap something else to snap into. So when the bag is being used, it just has something else to hold on to. Now the last thing I'll do to finish off this panel here is I'm going to snip out my lining. And if you did that already because the pattern piece, that's perfectly fine. But if you didn't, this helps to get everything all lined up. I like to wait on that. So then I know that when I line up my snap exterior piece and my snap lining piece, that they're all gonna lay nicely. And then because I did the 2 stitch lines and I basted it all in the same go, now this part is completed. Next, we need to add our snap pocket to our exterior. And I like this to be the front of the bag. So I'm gonna use the piece that has my logo on it. And so you have a couple ways of figuring out where the snap needs to go. You can do it by sight. So if I'm doing it like that, I like to align the top edge of my exterior panel on a straight line on my mat. And then I line up this pocket on another straight line. So it should be 2 inches down. So you could do it that way. You can see I miscut just a touch here on my main panel, but that's fine because if I install my snap just like this, I can just trim this off. Now, alternatively, another way that you can mark your snap is using the pattern piece. And so you would just line it up and mark the snap like we did before. So I need to cut my hole here. Line this up. Then you mark the snap. Now, just as a precautionary, I always double check this before I punch a hole into this cork. And so what I would do is lay it like so, and then lift it up and see and make sure that it's in the right spot. And if it's not, then I know that I have to make adjustments. Okay, and now I'm going to punch that hole. And then with this hole punched, we need to attach the other portions of our snap. So for these pieces, I have 3 and 4, and then on the dies, I have 3 and 4. 3 has the portion that snaps into the back of this side. And then 4, I always think that this looks like a little top hat. I guess I could take one out so you could see it. So I don't know why, but it just looks like a little top hat. And so this die set, this part of the snap goes with this die here that has the piece that sticks out because it just rests right on top like so. And then the number 3 has the side that has the springs on it. And you could see it has an indentation, and that's exactly where this little snap section fits. And again, just like on this side, you can hear it snap in. It's much softer sound. But so I like to snap number 3 in there. And then I take number 4 and you put it through on the back side like that. And then it's sticking out of the top. We need to change our dies out. And so just like before, what I'm going to do is I'll slide this panel onto this die, and you'll feel it when the little top hat sits. Sorry about my dogs. You'll feel it when the top hat sits incorrectly where it's supposed to be, and then again, watching your fingers press. And then there we go. We have the other side of our snap set attached. And what I like to do is snap them together. And then again, do the measuring, because a lot of times what can happen is your pocket can skew and go a little cattywampus, and you want it to be straight. So I like to line up my edges there, throw a clip in place, and then I'm going to go and just add some stay stitches so that this panel stays on this panel. If for whatever reason things shift around and you have some overhang, you could see mine, somehow I messed it up just from here to there. Just trim that off. You're going to trim it to, or so that it's all the same size. It kind of all comes out in the wash in the end, so it's nothing to be super crazy about. But now we have our entire front panel completed. And if you wanted to add a second snap pocket, you could do the same exact steps and add a second one over here. Alternatively, you can leave the snap itself off, but add the pocket, and you can sew right down the center where the snap would go, and then you can have 2 slip pockets. Another alternative is you can add an exterior zipper pocket as well. Because I already completed this whenever I was cutting out the pattern, step 5 is done. So step 6, we're going to attach our overlay to our lining panel. Now what I like to do is add a little woven tag in at this point. I like to tuck them under my little zipper overlay. So let's pick one out. I think this one matches nicely, the black. So this is the You Look Really Pretty Today. This is from Mormino. And I always like to add a piece of tape along this inside section here, just so that I'm positive that when I lay this tag in place, it's not going to shift on me. So you can see I just kind of laid it diagonal, and I'm going to stick it together. So now it's not going to move around. Next, you're going to take your double stick tape. You can use glue for this. You can use 1/8 inch tape or 1/4 inch. It's totally up to you. I like to use the 1/8 inch because this is from Waywack and it's hyper stick, so it is extremely sticky. I try to keep it out of my line of sewing as much as possible. And with the 1/8 inch, it's just wide enough to lay it down the center on the back of the zipper overlay, and it leaves enough of a gap to where when I'm stitching it down, I can, for the most part, as long as I lay my tape straight, I can keep my stitch lines out of the tape line. So that's what it looks like. So I'm going to peel off, whoops, just the paper, there we go. So I like to peel off the bottom paper, and then I always lay my tags, when it's wrong side up, I lay it on the left side, and I just kind of eyeball this too, but if I were to measure, I would say I laid about 3/4 of an inch in from this left side, and so it's sticking now to that double stick tape. Next, I'm going to peel off the top and get this ready to be laid into place on the lining panel. Now you want this overlay to be 1 1/4 inches down from the top. So I like to take my ruler, and along this top edge, I like to lay it to where I'm starting at 1 over here, and then go measure down 1 1/4 inch. And then now I can see where my center is supposed to be. So I can lay my zipper overlay. I just like to gently butt it up against my ruler here, and then ensuring that it's centered, then I apply pressure. After I kind of pat it into place, I always put the ruler on top and rub my hand along it just to be sure that this is really well adhered. Now I'm going to go to the machine, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch just along the outside perimeter of the zipper overlay. If you have duckbill scissors, this next step is going to be a lot easier, but if you don't, you can accomplish it just as easy with a regular pair of scissors. But what you're going to do is from the right side of the panel, I'm going to make a cut just along the inside of the zipper box, and then I flip, and the goal is to get this interior of the zipper box out of the way. And so being very careful, I keep my middle finger, or I keep a finger on this edge on the other side so I can feel, but I'm trying to get my scissors tucked behind the zipper overlay so that I can snip about 1/8 of an inch from the edge here. I do that on both sides. And then carefully, I'm going to snip into just the cotton and the interfacing, just into the lining. And I'm trying to maintain about 1/8 of an inch from my stitch line. But if you can cut up to there, you can see you can fillet this open and get it out of the way. And I like to kind of pull it off of the tape like so. And then once it's off the tape, I finger press it. And then when you have duckbill scissors, because they're flat, you can just lay them right along your fold and cut. And this doesn't have to be perfect. You can see mine is a little wonky. That's totally fine because this is all going to be hidden on the back side of this panel. But you don't want any of your cotton to be peeking through this cut zipper box. For the next step, we're going to need our smaller zipper and one zipper pull. Now you can use a number 3 zipper or a number 5. It's totally up to you, whatever you prefer the look of. I like to burn the edges of my zipper tape, especially because if it's getting wild like that, trim it and then singe it. And then you need to add your zipper pull. Okay, with our zipper pull added, I'm going to flip this panel back over and I'm going to use double stick tape and I'm going to apply 2 pieces along the long edges. And on this side, when I'm installing the zipper, I like to switch over to 1/4 inch because it gives me just a little bit more room to work with and it's going to hold down more of the tape. And my intention with this application here is I'm applying the tape right on top of that stitch line. So you can see, because there's paper backing on the tape, you can't see my stitch line anymore. And it's leaving a nice big gap here that I can stitch in. So I'm going to do the same on top and bottom. And then now what you do is peel off the backing. And I like my zipper pull to open from the left side, so that's where I'm going to start it. But if you wanted it to open from the right, you would just flip your zipper like that. You want to make sure at this point that your zipper is nice and straight and even. And then we're going to lay our panel on top of the zipper tape, centering the zipper tape in the middle of our zipper box here. Okay, Druzy, are you trying to help? And I want to leave it so that there's at least a 1/2 inch of overhang on the zipper. And if it doesn't lay correctly the first time, that's fine. Just pull it back up and readjust it as needed. But the goal here is to have your zipper tape as straight as possible inside the zipper box. Because once we stitch this down in the next step, we're not going to want to take it apart. So double check everything now, make sure it looks good before moving on. Okay, with the zipper taped in place, what we're going to do is flip our panel back over. Now we're going to add a 3rd layer of tape. This is, again, why I like to keep it out of my stitch line, because 3 layers of tape, I mean, there's no way. I don't care what machine you have. It's going to be mad if you try to stitch through it. So on this part, I'm going to lay it right over the top edge of my zipper tape, ensuring that it's really out of the way of my stitch line. We'll do the same along the bottom. What I'm going to do is gather my lining pocket top and lining pocket bottom. And you'll notice that there are 2 different sizes, and that's intentional. The lining pocket top is the bigger one. That is the one that you're going to lay, as the name implies, along the top here. So when you're laying it down, make sure that your directional fabric is facing in the correct direction. What I'm going to do is peel off just the top. And I'm going to line it up on my tape. And then now it is taped in place and ready to be sewn, but we need to attach our bottom edge as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this piece up and out of the way. But the clincher here, and this is really important, you want to make sure that your fold is going to catch in the stitch line around this interior zipper box opening. So when you're folding it, you need to be feeling for that folded edge. But another detail to pay attention to is you don't want it to be so close to the zipper that it impedes your zipper tape from opening. Once you get this one figured out, you're going to repeat that process for the bottom. And then with this directional fabric, you need to make sure that this top direction is actually facing the bottom edge of your zipper. Otherwise, it's going to be upside down when you're done. All right, so lay like that. And then again, you're going to fold it out of the way, being sure that it's going to get caught in your stitch line. You just want to finger press this really well. If it makes you feel better, you can hit it with an iron really quickly. Keep everything nice and straight. And if you want to double check, make sure that your folds are nice. Unzip it from the front very carefully, and then you'll be able to tell that everything is correct. And if for some reason it's not feeling close enough to this inner zipper box, make your adjustments now before you stitch it. Once you have it where you want it, you're going to flip it back up and go to your machine. I like to stitch, I start and stop my stitch lines on top of the zipper tape so that if I do any back stitching, it's not super noticeable, and that extra back stitching locks my zipper teeth even more. But so I like to start at this right side and then I stitch down, up, and then back. And what I look for here, whenever I make this corner, whenever I pivot, I want the left side of my foot to line up right on the right side of my zipper teeth. And so you can see here, I'm kind of messed up on, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to jiggle you around there. This is what you're going for here. So I have a nice stitch line just along the whole edge of this lining pocket piece, but you can see I missed it up here. So now what I'm gonna have to do is go back and pull these stitches out and fix this fold. So no harm, no foul, it happens. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this fold and kind of roll this side, because this side was fine, but this other side needed to come down just a touch. Finger press and then flip. And I'm going to start on this side because the whole bottom edge is nicely done, so I'll start over here. There we go. So now I have a nice stitch line just along that top edge as well. This is what the panel should look like. Your pieces away from each other. Now what you do is you fold this top section down and you're going to clip around the sides and bottoms side, yeah, and bottom. And so I'm gonna stitch my pocket closed, but we're gonna leave a birthing hole. And you can measure it an inch if you need to, that's totally up to you. I'm just gonna eyeball it. But I'm gonna go back over to my machine and I'm gonna, with my panel up, I'm gonna fold the top out of the way. And I'm gonna start my stitching up here on the zipper tape and tack over my teeth just for added security, come down and then pivot down into this corner section and then sew a little L here and backstitch really well. And then I'm gonna skip over this whole birthing hole and continue my stitches up and over here. And then when I pivot, I'm gonna be sewing this direction and I'm gonna sew all the way up and over my zipper teeth here. There we have it. Now we have a fully functional interior zipper pocket. Now that we have our interior zipper pocket completed, we need to create our main zipper. So I'm going to grab my zipper tape and I'm going to cut off the length of the big zipper. And we're going to fold the top edge at a 90-degree angle so that it banks and it can't come, the zipper pull, when the bag is closed, the zipper pull will meet here at this bank and it won't be able to zip any farther. And so to do that, I just got this really cute mini stapler, so we're gonna try this out. But there are several ways that you can do this 90-degree zipper. Get this out of the way so you can see. But you're gonna peel off about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of the zipper tape. You're not gonna pull it all the way apart. You can if you want to, then that would be similar to the way that I install my Seronas. But for this bag, I like to keep them together. I don't know why, it's just, each bag has a different personality and that's just how I do it. But so with the zipper face or zipper tape facing up, I like to take this top edge and I fold it about 1/2 inch down, grabbing both of the edges here. And then this folded edge, you'll see it starts to pull and it starts to lay exactly how you want it to. But what you're going to do is just force that fold down onto the 90-degree fold of the zipper. And what should happen is you should have a nice, neat little fold back here, but I need to do this first. Okay, so take the tape between your pinky or your thumb and your forefinger, and you're going to fold it back on itself, pinch that section, and then lay it across the teeth to create that 90-degree angle. Now, if you have a stapler, you can staple this, you can pin it, you can stitch it, you can glue it, you can do whatever you want. And so here we go. My little mini staple is right there holding that edge. And now we're just going to repeat that process on this side. And what I'm paying attention to is that my 90-degree angles are at the same height. So that way it matches when it's in my bag. Oh, you can also burn it and melt all these sections together. I don't want to burn myself though, but I have seen it done that way before. But it's just a little fiddly. These get easier to do with practice. There we go. So now we have the 90-degree fold ready to go. And I'm going to grab what is going to be the front of my bag. So this is my snap pocket with my logo. And my lining that does not have my lining pocket, because I want, when I'm wearing this bag and this is on the front of my body, when I reach into my bag, I want my zipper pocket to be along the back side. And I don't know, that's just another preference of mine. It's just easier to get in and out of with one hand. So I put the zipper pocket along the back. Another reason that I designed the bag that way is because when the bag is in use and this is the front pocket, and if there's stuff in here and you have this zipper pouch along the back of it, then this section of your bag is going to be bulky, whereas these two will be nice and flat. So I like to just distribute the thickness between the front and back panel. Alrighty, so we are going to put the zipper pull to the side. We're not going to use that yet. But we need our snap pocket panel, our zipper tape, and then a marking pen. And we are going to mark 1 1/4 from both sides here. And once you have those marks, I like to lay my 1/8 double stick tape in between those lines, just along the top edge of this panel. I'm going to peel that. Now again, a note about, I like my bags to open from this side when the bag is closed. So when I'm wearing the bag, and this is on my front, the zipper is actually going to be located on the right side of my body because I wear my bags on that side. So just consider which side you want your bag to open from, and that's where you're going to lay your 90 degree. So if you want it to open from this side, you lay your 90 degree this side on the right. If you want it to open from the left, you lay it on the left side. And what you're going to do is with your zipper tape right side down on the panel, at that first mark, you're going to lay your 90 degree angle, and you're going to lay your zipper tape just along that top raw edge. And now the goal is to tape, or to glue it, tape it, clip it to that 1 1/4 inch line that's over on the opposite end. And then I'm going to put another row of tape. I'm going to put another line of tape, whatever you want to call it. And this time I start it almost all the way to the end. I always leave about a 1/4 inch gap. Not really sure why. I think just keeping the tape out of my stitch line. So now this section here, because this panel is a straight edge, like my Sirona, it's curved, so it kind of naturally pulls off this top edge. But because this is a straight edge, you need to just kind of barely angle it down about a 1/2 inch or so. And then I keep that tape going all the way to the end here. And if you pull your zipper tape down and out of the way, you'll see that when you tape over that section, it'll just angle the tape to stay out of the seam line. And if you need to, you can add a clip as well. So once you have that tape adhered, you need to peel the paper. And then we're going to take our lining and then sandwich. So lay everything right sides together, your lining right on top, lining up this top edge here. Now, if you need to, you can mark your 1 1/4 inch line over here where the zipper needs to trail. Depending on which side you're going to stitch from, if you're stitching from your exterior side up or your lining side up, just make the mark so then you know. So I'm going to go to my machine, and I'm going to stitch with my lining side up just because I always like the bulk of my project to be on the left side of my sewing machine, so I'm not fighting with it within the throat area. And I'm going to start my stitch line. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch. Now when I bump up onto my zipper tape, I'm going to back stitch well here. I'm just going to add a couple stay stitches and then continue my stitch line. And then when I get to this 1 1/4 inch line down here, I'm going to just double check that my zipper tape hasn't come unclipped. I'm going to kind of just pull it out of the way even more. And then I'm going to continue stitching there. And then since I'm over here and I need to top stitch this section, I'm just going to stay here and walk you through it. And so what I like to do is flip to where my main panel is up on my workstation. And then I'm going to put a hand on my lining, and I'm going to reach up here and grab my zipper tape to keep it flat. I want my zipper tape to stay on the lining. And I'm going to flip the exterior up and over, and then I'm going to finger press just along this top edge here. And then carefully, I'm going to top stitch just along the exterior. Now what this is going to do is it's not going to stitch your lining down. That's another preference. It's the way that I like to sew, because I have found in my experience that sometimes I can't get the fold correct, and so just like what happened to me on my zipper box, sometimes I can't get the seams to line up, and then my lining looks really bad, but my exterior looks really good. So I started doing this method years ago, and it just alleviates that headache of having to unpick stitches. So now I'm going to lay my panel right side up and stitch along this bottom, or this top edge here. Pull the thread out. Now we're going to grab our remaining 2 panels and we're going to repeat that process on this side here, starting with the exterior. Now, what you need to pay attention to is that you need these 2 exterior panels to be right sides together. So what's going to happen is your 90-degree edge is going to flip to the opposite side, and that is correct. And so for some reason, my panels don't line up correctly. And what I want to ensure is that both the exteriors lay evenly on the right and left side. So I'm going to peel this and I'm going to scooch it over just a touch. Oops, I almost peeled my zipper tape apart. So same thing, I'm just flipping the main panel over, finger pressing well. So when I was taking my project off my sewing machine bed, I accidentally pulled my zipper tape apart. So I'm getting dangerously close to taking it all the way apart. It doesn't matter hugely, but when you start with your zipper tape attached, it tends to line your panels up nicer and keeps everything in line with the 90-degree fold, which is why I was trying to salvage this. So I'm skipping ahead. Druzy, okay, bye. You're not allowed to be rude. I'm skipping to the end and I'm going to add my zipper pull just so that I can ensure that my panels don't come apart. So now my zipper, now I know it's not gonna come apart on me. If you wanted to, you could totally finish the last step and install your zipper end cap, but I like to do that at the very end. It just feels like the cherry on top. So a couple things that I noticed is I never trimmed down my lining pocket, and I don't want to trim a ton down, but I do want to just nip a little bit out of the seam allowance here. And I don't want to pull too much, because if I do, then I run the risk of popping my stitches whenever I'm flipping the bag. But I want to do enough so that it reduces bulk, that when I'm closing up my birthing hole, it doesn't have a bunch of, you know, bulk. And then I also just noticed that I never transferred my dart lines to this panel. And so this is going to be our next step. We're going to sew up our darts. The way that you do that is with your panel right side up. You're going to fold the two dart edges on themselves, lining up that cut line, and clip it into place. And you're going to repeat that for all of the darts in the bag. So you should be sewing up, clipping and sewing up 8 of them. Now these get to be a little thick because of our pocket, and that's fine. Just make sure that you get a decent fold here, line up your edges, and clip. And so if you are sewing version A, you're just going to skip this step and go to the next step. But since I have to sew these, I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting at the bottom and going all the way up, maintaining that seam allowance well and back stitching really well at beginning and end. I'm going to do that on all 8 darts. Now we have all of our darts sewn, and you can really start to see the shape of the bag coming together here. And I'm going to trim down my interior seam allowances on my darts, but I'm actually going to leave my exteriors full 1/4 inch. And that is just to help in later steps when butterflying. It gives you more to work with, and it just makes it a little easier to sew over the corners, because they're going to be bulky. There's a lot going on down through here, and then we're adding in piping as well. So I just like to have as much flat area as possible when doing so. And so now we're on to step 14, where we're adding piping. If you're not adding piping, feel free to fast forward to the next step. But if you are adding piping, first thing we're going to do is mark 1 inch down from our side edge. And I like to work on the side that has my front pocket. And what you're going to do is, with one edge of your piping, what I like to do is fold it open, and it'll expose, if it's cork, it'll have the tube, or if it's cotton, like pre-made piping, it'll have the little cording. And I like to trim out a good 3/4 inch at least, or an inch, of whatever it is that's actually giving the piping its structure. Because, whoa, it'll just make folding and manipulating it a little bit easier. So on this 1 inch mark, this is where we're going to start our piping coming in, and you're lining up the raw edge of the piping with the raw edge of your bag. And we're going to go all the way down and back up and taper it off at this 1-inch side over here. Now, if when you're getting into this curve, if you need to nip into your piping to allow it to go around the curves, that's totally okay. Just make sure that you're not nipping all the way up to the stitch line here. You want to keep this stitch line of the piping intact. You can use double stick tape here, but because I'm going to be basting this into place, I want to avoid having a piece of tape on top of all of the layers, so I'm just going to clip it. And I just like to start, I kind of angle my piping just like this, right at that 1-inch mark. And I leave a little bit overhanging, about 1/4 inch or so, clip that into place, and it's going at this angle, but what I'm going to do is put some pressure on it and bend it to where now it's straight and it's lining up with this raw edge. Throw a couple clips in there, and you might need to snip right in here to let it fold over on itself. And then this is what it should look like. A nice little angle coming in just like that. And then we're just going to continue to go down and around. Then so I just realized I didn't trim my piping down to the 24 inches that it called for. So I'm just going to trim, here's my 1-inch mark right here. So I'm just going to trim off about another 1.5 inches past that. And then I'm going to peel. I need to take the tubing out all the way down to about here. A little bit more. Druzy, stop. Okay, so now we have our piping laid, and what I'm going to do is go and baste this into place just right along this edge here, about 1/8 inch. And at this point, if you have a narrow foot, this is where you're going to want to use it. And alternatively, if you don't have a narrow foot, you're just going to want to put, well, when you're basting it, you don't have to, but whenever we're stitching our panel together, you're going to put your needle all the way to the leftmost position so that it hugs right up against this piping here. But for now, just baste this into place all the way around, back stitching well at start and stop. This is what it should look like. It's a nice gentle curve here along the bottom, and I'm just going to trim my little ears off here. And we are almost to the finish line. Next step that we need to do is we need to unzip our zipper. And if you want to, you can add a staple. If you didn't add your zipper end cap earlier, you can add a couple staples here or stitch lines, and then that way it won't come unzipped whenever we're flipping the bag. But you want to unzip both your lining zipper and your top zipper. And now we need to lay our linings together and our exteriors together. Now for this, I like to start on my sides. I like to get these as accurate as possible. So I always start on this top edge and line that up nicely, clip it into place, and then I work all the way down and around my main panels. And I kind of ease it and I go back and forth until I meet in the middle down at the bottom. And in a perfect world, this works nicely. It plays nice the first time. And sometimes you have to do some finagling. And sometimes if you do need to do some finagling, if this isn't fitting correctly because it seems bigger, you can flip your darts to the opposite side. And then what'll happen is this other lining or this exterior panel kind of stretches up and around, and that makes fitting this curve a little bit easier. Now for these bottom edges here, the darts, because they're super thick, what I want to do is lay them in opposite directions. So when I sewed my piping on, I sewed this entire bulk to one side, same on this side here. But now when I'm clipping, I'm just going to make sure that because this bulk is sewn to the left, I'm going to angle this to the right. And then if you do that and you don't have piping, what should happen is those two seams should butt up against each other and it should give you a nice little shelf. You should be able to feel it kind of click together, slide together. So here we go. Our bottom is nestled, our exterior rather, and I'm going to repeat that on my linings. And sometimes my linings don't fit perfectly, but again, if you kind of swap your sides, a lot of times it lays and nests really nice. Okay, so we are all ready to go. I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch all the way around the entire perimeter. Now I am going to stitch with the exterior panel up that does not have the snap pocket. And I'm doing that very intentionally because that way I can really feel where my piping is. And this is when I'm going to switch to my narrow foot and I'm going to have my needle all the way to the left so that I am stitching. It's going to feel like I'm almost stitching on top of the piping, but I'm stitching just like right next to it to get the tightest line that I can around that piping. So on my Juki TL 2010Q, I got a myriad of different feet with it, and the foot that I'm using looks like this. So it has a nice flat edge, and it almost just looks like a half a foot because it's so narrow. And then the hole is over here on the left side. So I'm going to install this foot so that I can sew around my piping. Now I have found that when I'm trying to add piping to cork, my piping foot almost isn't, it's not narrow enough. I can't get on top of the cork enough to my liking, so I switched to this narrow foot and it worked much better. So I'm going to start right there on my piping, or just right above it. And I'm going to get this knocked out first. Oh, stitching from the wrong side already. Okay, so I don't know how much you can tell, but there is a bulge right here next to the foot on the left-hand side, and that is what I'm looking for. And so it ends up being a little more than the 1/4 inch seam allowance because I'm really just focused on getting right as close to that piping as possible. But just go nice and slow and make adjustments as needed. This gets extremely bulky through here, so be careful with your fingers. And if you need to, you can use your hand wheel. Okay, we're almost there. Now what we need to do is trim up our lining. If you want to, you can use pinking shears to get a nice, I don't know what I was going to say there, but if you use pinking shears, it really helps on curves. It helps them lay nicely, so I've just always used pinking shears. It doesn't make a huge difference in my experience when you're cutting out fabric, especially for a lining. But on exteriors, you know, you want a really nice, smooth, gentle curve. But cutting into this is a lot. So you might just want to leave it. I think I'm just going to leave it and flip this bad boy inside out. Or right side out, I guess. These edges, again, they're just so thick, so just take your time. Be sure to push out your corners. And I always like to tuck everything in first. Make sure that it's laying nicely before I close up my birthing hole, because sometimes I gotta pull it back through and tighten up some of my sewing. Looks pretty good. You can pinch on your piping. Work it into that curve. It's kind of deceiving because of the piping. It looks like the back side is going to be natural, but it's not. Tricky, tricky. Cute, looks good. So because I was able to use that narrow foot, or because I was using the narrow foot, I was able to get a really nice close curve, or nice close stitch line. So there we go. That is what it looks like so far. We are truly in the home stretch now. If you wanted to, you could hit this with an iron real quick. I am gonna save that to the end, but what I'm gonna do is pull my birthing hole back, or my pocket back up and out so I can close my birthing hole. And I'm going to push on those corners and then tuck my raw edges inside. And because I cut off that 1/2 inch of interfacing, this cotton just naturally wants to lay right over that interfacing line. And so I just work on one side first, get it clipped into place, and then I'll flip and do this side. All right, so now I'm going to go to the machine and I'm just going to stitch this birthing hole closed. For the last couple of steps, we need our rivets. We need our zipper end cap, if you haven't already installed that. And then you need your D-ring rivets. Initially, I was going to use these little guys that I've been loving and using for the past while, but I was checking out how the big rivet looks, and I think I dig that. Especially because this is a wider bag and not a slim. These little guys do really well in the slims because just the overall profile of that bag is really narrow. Obviously, it's in the name. But because this one just has more oomph to it, I think that these bigger guys are really nice. So if you're installing a D-ring rivet or just your regular, like your strap connectors, you would center your D-ring on the middle of your strap connector, and then you lay your D-ring right here on the seam, and then you're going to attach your strap connector there. Strap anchor, strap connector, I don't remember what I call it, sorry. But if you're using a D-ring rivet, I like to attach them here along the back side, just like that. just punch one little hole and install it there. But because I'm making a last minute switch, I'm going to check out how it looks and mark using the actual hardware itself. If you're interested in this hardware, I do sell this on my website, but only in antique brass, because that's all that I use. So I'm just selling you guys from my stash. Now, because this hardware is so large, I'm just laying it right above where the piping starts. So I think that's a nice visual. You know, you have the D-ring and then the piping. And then I'm just going to mirror that along this side. I love these connectors. I really love to use them on backpacks. So now, being sure that your zipper pull is out of the way, I like to just kind of finagle, make sure that my lining is laying correctly and how I like it before punching the holes. Because once you punch the hole, there's no going back. I'm putting the post on the inside so that I can see the hardware as I'm trying to, or as I'm installing it. Oh, I don't know if my hole went all the way through on this side though. It did go all the way through on that side, so let me... Jersey, please. Nope, there's a hole. Just hiding for me. Now, if you want to, you can make little washers for the inside where your rivets are. That's totally up to you. If you're going to do that, I would just suggest making them a little bit wider than your cap size. Love. Now, what I love about this hardware too is that when I get them, they're perfectly flat, but you can bend them. So I kind of bent this one to go around the edge of this purse. Kind of hard to see, but I bent it just ever so slightly to follow the curve of the bag. And so, yeah, you can bend them. I've even enclosed like all the way flat. I don't want to bend it all the way because then it'll, you know, be bent, but you can enclose edges and then put one rivet through both sides. These are pretty versatile little connectors. Okay, so this one is still relatively flat compared to this side, so at this point I would just kind of take it and bend it to fit with the curve of whatever bag I'm putting it on. And then another reason that I like these is on these bags that have a curve, it really allows it adds a lot of structure here on the sides, so it creates exactly how it creates the shape that you want. So there is the completed bag. Now we just have to add our zipper end cap and we are off to the races. See, so sometimes you can see, because the bag is closed now, this end of the hardware is sticking out a little awkwardly. So at that point, I would just bend it more until I'm happy with the way that it looks when it's open and closed. Okay, zipper end cap time. I'm just going to cut those staples out of the way. pretty hot. I'm going to take a piece of 1/4 inch double stick tape and cut it to the length of the zipper tape itself. Stick it right on the edge there. Peel. And then you fold your zipper tape along the wrong side, along the back side, into 3rds. Like so. It's going to have just a cute little tail. And then you slide your hardware on. And then attach your screw. Simple, simple. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Grab that strap that we completed in step 1. Aren't we so happy that we don't have to spend our time making this right now? Attach it to your hardware and admire the goodness of your new Callisto. Jersey, what do you think? You love it? All right. It might seem like this little section buckles a little bit, and it will until the bag starts being used, until you start filling up your pockets and such. What do we think? I love it. Friends, we did it. We made another bag. Kudos to you. I appreciate you being here, sticking around, and super appreciate it if you use these videos and sew along to them. I love knowing that I get to hang out with you in your studio and help be a witness and a craft shaman and get you, you know, a new thing that you made. Because that's like the best feeling, is accomplishing something that you set your mind to. So I hope, with that being said, that you loved this pattern and that you will make a bunch more and gift them and just do all the combinations possible. Even if you only make one, or even if you just want to come lurk and look at other people's, come join us in my Facebook group or on Patreon and hang out and share your makes. And I will see you next time. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.